Ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, and the rest of you guys out there in the Scrub fam, it is I, Pat, and today we are back for another limited review, this time for Set 8 Malicious Machinations. Today we're going to be talking about the red cards. For those of you guys who are not familiar with how I do things here on this channel for limited reviews, here's the grading scale from 0 to 10. You can pause the video and take a quick gander at that while I talk about Alec Pastrana and BeardedCollectibles.com, our wonderful sponsors here at 3XG Productions, as well as Shenron's Lair. Alec Pastrana is the best shop owner on the planet. You guys hear me and Matt and everybody else say it all the time in all of our videos. He is going to give you the best prices on sealed product for Set 8. If you are looking to pick up any cards, definitely hit up BeardedCollectibles.com. They even have full play sets for sale. Alec is going to take care of you and make sure you get the absolute best price. So with that out of the way, let us jump right into the cards. So we're going to talk about the red cards. Before I jump into all of them, though, I want to give a quick forward about this set in general. This is a set that is designed with Constructed in mind, and it's very, very apparent. I think this is an amazing set for Constructed. Limited, this set is really rough. There are a lot of poor cards and a lot of cards that are at higher rarities that lower rarity cards depend on. Therefore, they make certain things and certain lines of play inaccessible most of the time. So there's some slim pickings here when it comes to leader choice as well as card choice in general. So just keep that in mind. If your pre-release is kind of rough and you feel like you can't really make a deck that is feasible or works, it's kind of because that's how it is. Based on the ratios of cards and the distribution of rarities, it's really difficult to get anything going. So yeah, now more than ever, relying on good card quality and just generically good cards will take you much further than usual in a standard sealed pool. Obviously, things are a little bit easier in draft since you can draft an archetype, but even then, it's still rough. So with that out of the way, let us talk about our first leader, Bulma. Bulma has poor stats on both the front and the back, but she does have good card draw and does have amazing synergy with a lot of the commons and uncommons in this set. The biggest problem with Bulma is she suffers from three things. One, there is no Bulma that is not at the super rare rarity in this set, which means that one of her best bombs and best plays is that in Constructed is inaccessible to her entirely almost in Limited. That hurts her quite a bit. Two, the super combo that you have access to in this set is Piccolo. It's not an Earthling, it's not a Saiyan, so you lose out on some of the really good synergy at the common level that makes Bulma so good in Constructed. And three, I feel like she's just outclassed by some of the other leaders, especially the one that we're going to talk about next. So for that reason, I'm going to give Bulma a 7. Not a bad pick by any stretch, but I think that there are slightly better picks. So next up we have BEERUS. I don't even know where to begin. BEERUS is incredible. He's amazing, just generically super, super good. Great card draw, has the untap on the Awaken, backside free super combo, and the ability to just kill something for 2 energy, which is nuts. If I had to knock BEERUS in any way, it's just the lack of card draw on the back, and you are hard locked into playing red-yellow. So that is a little bit of a knock against it. That said, like, BEERUS is one of the most incredible limited leaders we've ever had. He just suffers from the fact that he is in a set that doesn't really play 100% to his strengths in limited. If this was a draft box leader, he would just be over the top. So I'm going to give BEERUS a 9 in sealed and probably even a 10 in draft, just because that way you have some more control over what you can go. Like, BEERUS is probably the pick if you were trying to win your pre-release. Next up is SS3 Goku One Hit Wonder. 3-drop 15k is for its rate, but it does have the clause that you can play it for 0 if you somehow shrink one of your opponent's battle cards with an effect. If you open multiple of these, they obviously help each other out a little bit in being able to use the first one to shrink to play the second one for free at some point. You can do a lot worse than this at the rare slot, so I'm going to give Goku a 7. It is a playable. Remember, we want 7s or higher most of the time when it comes to building top-tier draft decks. Next up is Great Ape Son Goku, abilities amplified. 3-drop 20k is an okay rate. You're never going to use the EX Evolve clause because, one, the first target you would most likely use it on is a great energy sink, which will help you smooth over your draws, so I don't think you really want to give that up just to have an extra 15k unless it's the kill shot. And two, the other target is a super rare that is significantly better than this card, so I don't know why you would even want to evolve over it. That said, 3 cost for 35k is basically a guaranteed damage when you EX evolve, so that makes this Goku actually pretty good. I think he is a strong 7. Based on how many Goku targets, it might be even as high as an 8. He's still a pretty good card. Speaking of pretty good cards, Son Gohan Determined Training. Burst doesn't matter, but this card, for all intents and purposes, is a 2-drop 15k critical, which, as you guys know, is probably the thing I value the highest when it comes to commons in a set. So I'm going to give Gohan an 8, even if he isn't as good as just a generic 15k critical. Speaking of generically good 2-drops, Son Gohan Brainwash is a 2-drop 20k, and as you guys know, we always give those 8s because those are great for 2. Next up is Son Goten Rushing In, 1 cost with Revenge. This card is straight up a 1 unless you're playing Bulma. If you are playing a Bulma, it is an 8 for sure. This is the best reason to go Bulma. If you open 3, 4, 5, whatever many Gotens, that's the reason or the signal that you should go Bulma, because not every deck can deal with it. Just having free revenge blockers, or I should say 1 cost revenge blockers, is really, really stupidly powerful. So yeah. Again, strictly only Bulma. Don't spend any more time on it. Basically, unless you have no other red cards, don't play this card unless you want to play Bulma. Next up is Son Goten Brainwash. 3 cost for a 10k is abysmal. I don't think I would ever want to play this, and I don't think any good player is ever going to actually KO this card to allow you to get another card off of it. It does have some like cute synergy, I guess, if you can like force your opponent to attack it, or like, you know, make them want to attack as you go wide with a bunch of them. I don't know. It does get the 20k Gohan if it dies, but like that's never going to happen, I feel like, against a good player. So I wouldn't even deck this card. I'll give it a 4 out of 10. Just only deck it if you have literally nothing better in your sealed pool. Speaking of cards you should not deck unless you have nothing better in your sealed pool, Trunks Brainwash is very much the same story. So 3 costs 10k, which is a terrible rate. It does have this nice ability, though, where after you swing with it, you can just bin it to get a baby that costs 2 and shrink something by 5, which I guess is alright. But again, I don't ever really want to pay 3 costs for a 10k. Even in Constructed, where you want to play some of these Brainwash cards, you don't even hard cast them. So they're basically just filler cards to fulfill the requirements of some of the better or higher end cards in the set. Again, I just don't deck this card unless you just don't have anything else really to play over it, or you just somehow are a sack and have all the copies of the or have like the whole baby chain, and you're multiples of it, I should say, so that way you can actually execute it with some regularity, and it's not just like one of everything and try and hope to live the dream. Next up is Videl Miraculous Aid, which is an amazing card in Constructed. But again, Piccolo's the super combo for whatever reason, so we can't get back the super combo with this. This is basically only good in Bulma because it's locked to Bulma for whatever reason. That said, excuse me, it is a 1 cost that does get you back a card, and it is a blocker, so it does have some inherent value. I'm going to give Videl a 7. It's pretty much exactly where we want to be for 1-drops. Next up is Chi-Chi Motherly Majesty, another card that's insane in Constructed and just terrible in Limited. So 1 cost 1k. Yes, if you're Bulma, it's got a blocker, so I guess that's some reason to play the card. But you need 2 or more red/green multicolor cards in your energy in order for this card to basically be a mini super combo. The only red and green multicolor cards in this set are super rares or rares, and you need to open 2 of them, and then you would need to see them. So in 6 packs, let's say you live the dream and get 2 of the rares and a secret rare, or the super rare that is red-green. You need to see 2 of them by like the 3rd turn for you to really want to consider decking this card. The only reason I think you should want to deck this card is if you're in Bulma. It's actually made even worse. I just realized this card's a rare. This is just, oof. Chi-Chi is just bad. Like, I wouldn't play. I would give her a 3 in sealed. In draft, where you have some regularity of being able to actually see the red-green multicolor cards, I'll give her a 5. Much better card in Constructed than in Limited. Next up is Bulma Unyielding Courage. 1 cost, 1k is kind of bad stats, but doesn't matter because you're only playing 1 cost cards usually for their ability to cantrip, which thankfully Bulma does. She also has the ability to constantly bring back revenge blockers, which if you are in Bulma is very difficult for decks that are not BEERUS to deal with, because you just have wave after wave of free blocks every single turn, and the revenge ones in particular can start to take care of the larger, bigger bombs that your opponent has. So if your opponent just doesn't have hard removal or any way to get Bulma off the board, she kind of is like an amazing pseudo win con. She doesn't hard win the game, but she makes it so your opponent can't actually win the game. So if you're in Bulma, I'll give her an 8. If you're not in Bulma, it's probably like somewhere between a 6 and a 7, just because you're only playing it because it's a 1 cost that draws a card. So, yeah. Next up is Dependable Warrior Piccolo's our super combo, and as always, I give these an 8. Next up is BEERUS Biding His Time. 3 cost, 15k crit is already pretty good. Having the upside of having a red-yellow multicolor, which there are a fair number of rares and even uncommon multicolor red-yellow cards. So you will usually trigger this card. You'll at least have 1 target for it to be able to play it for 1. At 1, it is a 1 cost, I should say. It is outstanding. At 3, it is still pretty playable. So I'm going to give BEERUS an 8. I do think it is one of the better rares. And I know that sounds kind of bad because compared to some other sets, there are some absolutely ridiculous rares. But yeah, like I said, this is definitely a set that was built with Constructed in mind. There's very slim pickings when it comes to actual cards to choose for Limited and Draft. Next up is Peel Off the Cunning. You know, this is just a fancy way, this giant text box of saying we cantrip. So it's like a 6, possibly even a 7. Dr. Mew, oh man, this is just rough. If you're not in Baby straight up, just it's a 1. I just wouldn't even like try to play it. This is another card that's like, it just screams Constructed. It's an uncommon. The only real reason to want to play it is to be able to cheat into play another uncommon, which again, there's only like 2, maybe 3 copies of any given uncommon in a set, and then you have to be in the Baby Leader. Like, come on, man. Like, if you've got it all, like you've got the multicolor energy, you've got the Baby Leader, you've got 2 or 3 copies of the 1-drop Baby, then by all means play Dr. Mew, and he's probably like a 7 at that point. But 99 out of 100 times he's probably a 1, and I just wouldn't even deck him. Speaking of cards I wouldn't deck, Baby Vengeful Blow. So it's an 8 cost 20k, which is like, there's no way you're ever paying 8 for this. It's not, even if you did have 8 energy, you could do so many better things with 8 than just pay all 8 and tap out for a 20k. Yes, it does have the ability to come into play for free if somehow your super rare, which is super uncommon for the average player to pull, gets removed from the board. You're never going to use this other ability, by the way, where you can get another 30k Baby from your hand. Like, that's asking for 2 supers. Like, you have to open 2 Malicious Majesties. Correct me if I'm wrong. That's not happening. I just would not waste the deck space on this card. I could see some people, they might get lucky. I play it as a 1 of if they have nothing better and get into play if your 5-drop Baby somehow kicks the dust. But like, again, oh boy, yeah, that's a 1 from me. That's a 1 from me, dog. Alright, so next up is Baby the Overseer. 2-drop 10k is a bad rate for sure. You can sack a yellow Baby to play this card instead of paying its cost. What's the point? Like, it's not like too super expensive. Like, what are you going to do? Play Dr. Mew to play the 1-drop Baby, draw 3, discard 2, sack it, get a 10k that does... Yeah. So you see the point. Like, this card is basically like a 4. It's not really worth decking. But like, again, when you see how low the score is on a lot of these cards, something's gonna have to give, so you might as well stick with the 2-drop 10k over some of the other cards, I guess. Now we move on to the extra cards. Birth of a Super Saiyan God. It is a desire. You can choose 1 red or yellow Saiyan or Earthling with a cost of 2 or less in your drop area and play it, and then you mill 2. The mill 2 doesn't really matter. It just fuels the drop for more cards later on for more targets. This card's actually not that bad at all. Again, if you're in Bulma, this just lets you pick up the Revenge blocker and any other host of other things, your super rare Bulma. So it's effectively like having extra copies of those cards. And for that reason, I'm going to give it a 7. It's basically only for Bulma. Again, as we said at the start of the video, Bulma has a lot of consistent strategies you can build at the common level. But you see there's no real power. No real like crazy loops or anything. You just have a synergistic deck that's like average to low power. But for the most part, that's still pretty good. Having a consistent deck is better than an inconsistent powerful one. Next up is Birthday Party. This card is really, really good if you are a Bulma. If you somehow open at least 1 red-yellow multicolor energy, again, there's a fair amount of them at the uncommon level and then the rare level. I'm sure you'll open at least 1, maybe 2 copies in your booster packs. Yeah, being able to have a free field spell That draws you 2 cards. To discard 2 every turn means that, again, Bulma's deck is really, really consistent with not quite a lot of power. That said, there's something to be said about having this, enchantment that's just going to draw you 2 cards and discard 2 every turn. You can basically sculpt your hand and find exactly what you want and try and dig for those super rares and rares that will hopefully put you over the top and win you the game. I'm going to give Birthday Party an 8. Next up is Flaming Death Ball. I actually like this card quite a bit. It's a pretty good combat trick. You have to be Baby, obviously, which is a yellow leader, so you have to be yellow-red. But having a card that is 1 cost to give 2 attackers 10k for the turn is a pretty good trick. It's pretty good value. You're basically getting a 1 cost 20k combo. It's just spread across 2 bodies. And then obviously on defense, it's a 1 cost 20k, which is really hard for your opponent to push through. And it's at the commons level, so if you're in Baby, you can pick up a couple of these in tandem with some super combos, and it's just going to be really easy for you to push down your opponent with your actual leader and any of the other battle cards that you may have, because again, red-yellow is pretty aggressive. I think this card's, again, a pretty good trick, so I'm going to give it an 8. Next up is the last card we'll be talking about, which is BEERUS Ball. BEERUS Ball is a 1-cost counterplay. You can only play when you're at 4 or less life. Not every threat is going to be 15k or less power, but there are a fair amount of them still in the set, and you could do a lot worse than this. It is still 1 cost to kill a 15k or less that your opponent is playing, and then you get a pseudo Sensu Bean effect for the rest of the turn. You can do a lot worse than that. As of the timing of this video and the recording of it, talking to Casey Campbell and a couple of the other judges, it appears that the target does have to be valid for this entire cycle to get the additional effect. So for a card like Absolute Release Ball, you have to bounce a 3 or less in order to get the untap. So if your opponent plays like a 4 or more, you don't get anything. And I believe the same would be said here for BEERUS Ball based on the way that the card is worded. If you do not get a 15k or less as the target, you don't get the Sensu Bean. So keep that in mind. Alright guys, so that's it for the red cards. Join us next time when we talk about the blue cards, including these 2 wonderful ladies here. Yeah, if you guys enjoyed this, as always, leave me a comment down below, leave a like, or possibly subscribe if you're not already. It really helps the channel out a lot and lets me know what I'm doing right and what I'm doing wrong. If you guys have any other questions, as always, shoot me a message on Facebook, Discord, or again, leave a comment down below. I'm always happy to answer them and, also help improve the quality of these limited videos. Until next time, okay, bye!